Hi there, my name is Clavelle and I'm coming to you from Canadian First Aid Training Limited. In this video I will do an overall assessment as well as diagnostic test and servicing of the Philips FRx automated external defibrillator. Before I go any further, if you happen to have any questions, concerns, or comments stemming from this video, please feel free to contact us at the information provided below. We'd be more than happy to help. Now, once you access the defibrillator, whether it be through the alarm security box, the wall-mounted bracket, or the Pelican hard case, there are a few things to keep in mind before accessing the defibrillator from the soft case. The first of which is to make sure that the defibrillator itself is currently in working order. In the upper right part of the soft case, you'll notice a little window, and if you look closely, there should be a flickering green LED light that does so every 4 to 5 seconds, which basically signifies that the defibrillator itself has passed its last diagnostic test. In other words, if this little green light is flickering, that means that the defibrillator itself has checked itself, and for all intents and purposes, every day, every week, every month, to make sure that it's in working order. In other words, also, if for some reason that you notice that the defibrillator itself has no flickering green light, or for some reason for doing the servicing it has started chirping, for all intents and purposes, it is mandatory to do the servicing. When we mean servicing, it means that the defibrillator itself has actually checked to make sure that the battery as well as the defibrillator itself are in working order, as well as the consistency of the electrode pads is also ready to be used. Again, if for some reason this green little flickering light is not present, that means that the servicing is mandatory. Now, quite simply, to access the defibrillator from the soft case would be to just quite simply take off the Velcro and open up the casing. Now again, for all intents and purposes, in this scenario, the defibrillator is using because this green flickering light is working. It is flickering every 4 to 5 seconds. Another quick little visual is that you'll notice that there is a set or a wire that basically shows here that it's plugged, which means that the electrodes are ready to be used. And you'll notice that there's a quick reference guide which will be useful if you ever have to use the defibrillator. Taking this little gray piece of material and pulling up on the Velcro, you'll access the electrode pads. I will remove this. And to remove the defibrillator so that we can do the diagnostic test and servicing would be to go to the back of the case, and you'll notice a black piece or a black strip of soft material. This is actually the only way that you'll be able to take out the defibrillator because it's actually suctioned into the case. By pushing on this material, you're actually going to take out and push to make sure that that defibrillator pops out, and as you can see, it does so fairly easily. Putting this over to the side over here. Now there are two things before I actually get into the servicing that are important to know. The first of which would be to understand that the battery itself, which is just basically a big 9-volt battery, has a 5-year shelf life. What that means is that in this case, the shelf life says here 01/2011, which means that if I put this battery within January or before January 2011, from that point on, the battery should be good for 4 years. So as long as the battery is installed before the install before date, from that point on, the battery is good for 4 years in the defibrillator. As for the electrode pads has an expiry date from the date of manufacture. So this is a hard date, which is very important to keep track of. In this case, the expiry date is 02/2009, which means that it's February 2009. That means that this set of pads is actually no longer current and should not be put into the defibrillator. Now, to service the defibrillator is actually quite simple. The first thing to do would be to take out the battery. Again, a big 9-volt battery, taking it from this part right here, you'll take out the battery. And the second thing will be to unplug the electrode pads. Again, everything that needs to be taken apart has been done. Now, to do the diagnostic test and to initiate the diagnostic test, it would be to re-plug in the electrode pads, making sure to not open up this little cartridge, and to take the battery and put it back in. Clip it in.
Beginning self-test. If this is an emergency, press the green on-off button.
This is not an emergency, so we won't press the green button.
Shock button test. If the orange button is flashing, press it.
We'll press the orange button.
Verified on-off button test. Press the green on-off button now. Verified.
Having pressed those two buttons,
Testing.
the machine will start to keep repeating testing, testing, testing,
Testing.
and we'll do so for about a minute. Now, the reason for this is that it's checking its capacitors
Testing.
to make sure that the defibrillator can deliver the electrical shock if required, and is making sure that the
Testing.
adhesive gel and the consistency is working. You'll hear some clicking coming from the defibrillator. And from this point on, we're just going to let it finish.
Testing. Testing. Ready for use.
After only 45 seconds, the defibrillator has checked itself and is, for all intents and purposes, ready to be used. Now, having put the defibrillator back into the soft case, you'll notice again, if you look here, that the green flickering light is present. Opening up this little part to put the electrode pads back in, making sure to not open it. Closing this up. And a couple other things would need to be done here just to make sure that everything is in working order and everything is present. If you open up the part here of the case, you open this up and you'll notice that there's an extra battery as well as extra set of pads. The strong suggestion here would be to make sure that there is an extra set of pads as well as batteries. However, depending on the decision that was made when the defibrillator was purchased, this may vary. Now, the extra set of pads, again, it's right here. The expiry date is 06/2011, which means it is still good and will be good for over 2 years, as well as the battery itself here. If I look at the install before date, is 04/2014, which means that as long as it's installed before that date, everything should be good and in working order when it's required or needed later on. Closing this up. The last thing here to make sure of is, again, depending on the company policy or the reason for purchasing, there is this little pink key which is used for pediatric use. Now, if this is a part of the program or the public access defibrillator that's been purchased, this quite simply is just to make sure that it's the pink part is actually still attached to the blue part here, and that for all intents and purposes is in place. Closing up the case. The last thing to assess would be to make sure that the fast response kit, which is a little bag that should be attached to the defibrillator case, is current. Now, there should be 5 things: a pair of scissors, a pair of gloves, a pocket mask, a razor, as well as a paper towel to make sure that if the electrodes are being put on the person's chest, so that it can actually be wiped. As long as those 5 things are in the fast response kit and they look to be in good working order, that's all that needs to be done with the fast response kit. Now, for the actual fast usage of the Pelican hard case, all that would need to be done would be to take up these clips here, and when these clips are on, it just makes sure that there's a waterproof as well as dust-proof seal here. If there just so happens to be a lock or maybe these little tie wraps that are being used, this is just to make sure that it doesn't get tampered with. However, a lock is not recommended on the Pelican hard case. Once you open up these 2 clips, you'll have access to the defibrillator, and again, for all intents and purposes, the servicing is the same as if it were to be in a soft case. That concludes the servicing of the Philips FRx automated external defibrillator. For your convenience, we've included a owner's manual below this link. Again, if you happen to have any questions, please feel free to contact us anytime at the information provided below. Thanks again for visiting our website.